Diablo 4 Endgame explained in new video. Over 120 dungeons, each of them convertible into Nightmare. Okay. Today, Blizzard shared an overview of the D4 Endgame in a dedicated video presentation hosted by a handful of key developers. Once the campaign has been finished, D4 will task players with the completion of a capstone dungeon. Successfully doing so unlocks a new world tier, which increases the difficulty of the whole world of Sanctuary, but also the experience and the rewards gained. So you gotta beat the capstone dungeon to unlock the next difficulty. That's a cool feature. Of course, the overarching goal of the D4 endgame will be growing your character's power. The Paragon system is pivotal in that regard, allowing a lot more depth and customization options. Sure, players will be able to rotate the Paragon board, picking up the bonuses they are most interested in relation to their intended playstyle. On top of the Paragon system, there is also the Codex of Power system, which was available in the recent beta. The Codex of Power contains the aspects usually gained by completing dungeons and useful to empower items with additional effects, while also upping their quality to legendary. This is the stuff that you get as a reward on the dungeons. That's cute, but most of them ended up like I ended up getting a lot of the legendary aspects through just drops rather than just farming them in the dungeons. In terms of PvE content, the Nightmare dungeons will be the bread and butter of the Diablo 4 endgame. Any of the over 120 dungeons featured in the game can be transformed into a Nightmare dungeon with a sigil. Sure. Call it whatever you want to call it. These dungeons will be more difficult, with significantly increased intensity of the fights, and also feature brand new objectives compared to the non-Nightmare version of the dungeon. Nightmare dungeons are made even more special by the affixes, which adds special conditions to the content. For example, the Hellgate affix will randomly spawn portals that foes from other regions will use to pour in, making the dungeon run extra challenging. That's good. Even the overworld will be affected in the Diablo 4 endgame. Helltide areas are zones where the influence of Lilith is more pronounced, which will be visually represented by rivers running red and meteors falling from the sky. Cool shit. I'm on board with that. The result of this is empowered monsters, but on the bright side, players can obtain shards that can be redeemed for caches, providing nice loot. Sure. Blizzard also came out with a bounty-like system called Tree of Whispers. Players will be directed to complete different bounties throughout Sanctuary and will receive meaningful reward caches from the tree once they are successful. Sure. PvP is also available in the game. Unlike Diablo 3, a special area called Fields of Hatred allows player versus player combat. Here, players can also gather special shards, though they will have to be purified before they can be used. The purification process will alert other players, thus fostering PvP action. If you are successful and take back the purified shards to town, they can be turned into specific NPCs to get cosmetic items. So PvP has no in-game value other than cosmetics. Amazing. The Blizzard developers end by teasing that this is just the beginning, as the Diablo 4 endgame and the game as a whole will receive many updates and additions even after launch. Live service. Okay. Was that the Lilith fight? Hold up. Oh my fucking Amaranth. Is this the Lilith fight? Sexy.
We're really excited about getting this game into players' hands, letting them experience this massive world.
A main cornerstone of D4 is play your way. As a player continues to advance through the story and into the endgame, they'll unlock a ton of brand new activities that provide meaningful progression, no matter their playstyle.
players to be able to keep progressing in the narrative of the game. Alongside that, the whole team has worked on crafting a variety of different experiences players can pursue.
We're going to have an entire world of Sanctuary for our players to offer. There's going to never be an absence of something to do.
After the player has finished the campaign, there's a lot more game to go and participate in. They gain access to a special, what we call capstone dungeon that they have to complete. Once they're able to finish this capstone dungeon, they're going to gain access to the first world tier.
As you complete the world tier, it will open up the opportunity for you to go into your next world tier. That involves unlocking powerful loot, new items, and more advantages for your player to have a better opportunity at end game.
Whether you're a fan of dungeons, PvP, or just roaming around the world, there's a way to continue your Diablo adventure long after hitting max level.
Good.
As your character continues to grow in power, you'll start with the skill tree and expand out into the Paragon system.
A lot of the choices the players make are grounded on skills themselves and the fantasies associated with those skills. The Paragon board is a place where we're allowed to have a lot more depth, a lot more customization.
Okay, hold up.
Have a lot.
You deal 5% increased damage for each nearby enemy that is crowd control up to 25%. That's a lot.
More depth, a lot more customization, many more options as you go.
These kind of seem boring though, like they went over like, I don't know, 5 of the thingies, like,
and the fantasies associated with
all
those
of them
skills.
are like
Paragon board
plus
is a place
5
where we're allowed
to
have
some
a lot
attribute.
More depth, a lot more customization, many more
2,
options as you go.
3, 4, like 15 dex, 5 intelligence.
If you're like, I want to
That's
do more
garbage.
strength-based things, or I want these particular boons or glyphs, you can chart your path
What
through
is
it, and
this?
they're really a way for you to keep expanding your character and making it uniquely yours.
Similar to the Paragon boards is the Codex of Power. It's an in-game system that holds the aspects related to the character. You are able to complete a dungeon and they will have a chance to drop an aspect that you can pick up.
And what this allows players to do is take items they're finding in the world and make them more powerful, turn them into legendary items.
It's really special to discover what kind of playstyle really means the most to you.
Okay.
Every part of Sanctuary is fulfilling and satisfying. Dungeons in particular are really close to my heart. Nightmare dungeons are going to give the players the opportunity to experience a dungeon that they might have already experienced in their past playthroughs. They'll enter the dungeon with a found sigil that alters the playstyle and the intensity of the dungeon.
They're more difficult and they have additional objectives, and then they also have affixes, which add a degree of difficulty for you and your group to work through.
One of my favorite affixes that you can find in Nightmare Dungeons is actually called Hellgate. Occasionally, these portals will open up throughout the area that will just pour out different monsters that aren't native to that region for you to also be dealing with while you're trying to handle everything else inside the dungeon. There's over 120 dungeons to play through and find in Diablo 4, and any one of them can become a Nightmare Dungeon by finding a Nightmare Sigil and then using it to activate the Nightmare version of that dungeon space.
Everything's a little darker, everything's more difficult. It's going to add a little bit of a twist of flavor on your particular dungeon.
Okay.
There's some targeted activities in Diablo 4 that suit what you're feeling in the mood for.
The Forces of Hell are starting to have more influence in certain parts of Sanctuary in the vast interconnected overworld that we experience. And as the players are going into Helltide areas, you're gonna find even more powerful monsters. And by killing them, they'll be able to gain these special shards they can take to go and use to purchase these big rewards that are available at these caches that are found literally throughout Helltide areas.
The sky darkens and the rivers run red, meteors fall from the sky, and the monsters get harder. We really want to create new experiences for the players. There's one I really like called Whispers of the Dead, which you get from the Tree of Whispers. The Tree of Whispers is grim and a little gruesome, but it's also something mystically haunting and kind of beautiful.
The tree has a little bit of a grudge against our players and it would like for them to go serve its needs. So you're going to go serve these bounties, gather different rewards, different items, and bring them back to the tree in hopes that it can exchange you something really meaningful.
Maybe you're gonna go to the Fractured Peaks and take out some werewolves.
Okay, what was that?
Maybe you're gonna go
Collection of one-handed weapons, boots of gauntlets. Right.
to the Fractured Peaks and take out some werewolves that are rampaging in a town. They're contained activities that you can do alone or in a group. We really wanted to create variety for people to be able to
Imagine
spend
playing
time
alone.
where they wanted to in the world. It's very cool the way it's been put together, and I can't wait for people to see it, to be honest.
In Diablo 4, we have a focus on the world of Sanctuary. And there are parts of that world that we call the Fields of Hatred, where Lilith's presence in Sanctuary has begun to seep through and manifest these poisonous areas throughout the world. When players go to these regions, they get to engage in player versus player conflict.
These offer opportunities for the player to collect shards. But there is a little bit of a catch. In order to get these shards back to town, you'll need to purify them. Other players will definitely know that you're attempting to purify your shards, so you'd better be prepared to fight if you're going to be playing any PvP, and be prepared that you might lose some stuff in the meantime.
Once they've got the purified
Hardcore
shards, they can
players,
take these, go back to nearby towns to sell them, and then use that to buy a whole bunch of like interesting cosmetic items and rewards.
It's a place for people who really love PvP and want to still get loot and still increase their character's power. If that's the way they want to play, they can.
Launch is just the beginning. One of the things we're really focused on is creating a living, breathing set of updates for players to engage with after the game has gone live.
It's
I
really
miss
just
this
gonna be
game
a
so
way
much.
to keep coming back and experiencing more Diablo 4 in fresh ways.
We're really eager to hear all of your experiences and just enjoy the entire story with you all.
Ah, goosebumps yet again. Okay, Amaranth. Alright, good shit.